What's up, college football addicts? Today, we're going to talk with you guys about the college football team that nobody wants to play this year. And I mean nobody. This is a team that has never really been on the elite college football radar, but we suspect and we have a feeling that this year they are going not only to the playoffs, but that they will probably be one of the most elite teams in the country. In fact, I'll go ahead and warn you of this. If this team is on your schedule, you need to prepare for an all-out war. So who are we talking about today? I'm talking about none other than Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebels. And for any of you fans joining us for the very first time, welcome to College Football Addiction. I assume that you love this sport just as much as I do. And if you do, and if you learned something today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for us. Let's run through all the reasons that Ole Miss has transformed itself into a decent team, and now they're a potential world beater. Number one, their returning quarterback is where it starts. Having a proven returning quarterback is always the first ingredient with a team that's expected to take a big step up, and Ole Miss has an amazing one with Jackson Dart. Ole Miss fans will know this, but Jackson Dart led them to 10-2 last year, which was a significant step up from the year prior. Dart knows that this is his NFL money year, and if he can get Ole Miss deep into a playoff run, he'll make himself millions more dollars in the NFL draft. Not only that, you think about that final year of kind of a rebuild, and we've seen that in different places. You look at Penix at Washington, you look at Nix at Oregon, you look at Travis at Florida State, and what they were able to do in their final year, each of them really propelled their team to where those three teams that we just mentioned lost a combined one game in the regular season. And the only loss that any of them experienced was to one or the other. Washington and Oregon obviously had to play each other head-to-head. Ole Miss also returns a ton of good talent. If you look at Bill Connolly's rankings for returning production, they're at the top of the country. They have so much more returning talent than most of the teams they play this year, and I think that'll be a big piece and a big part to why they see a lot of success. They're not necessarily just building something new. They've got a lot of key pieces coming back. NIL has been a massive factor for them. Ole Miss finished number one in the 247 transfer portal rankings. Not only did they spend a lot of money on the transfer portal, more than a typical year, but they also spent it effectively. They filled in gaps. They filled in holes where they had issues, where they could get better. You especially look at the defensive side of the ball, where nobody could stop them this year, but they struggled to stop other teams as well. And they've shored some of that up, bringing in elite-level defensive line play and elite-level secondary play as well. They also spent money because you understand that your return on investment for spending a lot of money this year is more than the average year because you're so close to competing for it all. We'll cover more about the way that their schedule sets up in just a moment, but that's a big part of it as well. Landing guys like Walter Nolan on the defensive line, Princely Umanmielen, Antoine Wells, Chris Paul Jr., this team is absolutely loaded with 4- and 5-star players. And it's by far going to be the most talented team they've had on a football field in a long time. There was a lot of hype around Ole Miss in 2015. I believe that's the year they beat Alabama. And then going into 2016, they were very hyped with Kelly at quarterback. They played Florida State in that opening game. They were blowing Florida State out until a late comeback, a pretty special comeback for the Seminoles there in Orlando happened. But this is the first time since then that they've really been thought of as an actual contender. I also think Lane Kiffin is going to take not being offered that Alabama job personally. I think that he could have potentially taken that job if offered. I don't know many people that would turn it down, but he has certainly got it made in the shade at Ole Miss right now with what they have returning. The program is at an all-time high. Fan support is at an all-time high. Booster contribution and support at the NIL with their Grove Collective is at an all-time high. And regardless of whether he would have taken that job or not, Lane is the type of person who is going to take that snub personally. And he probably should. I have it on pretty good authority that If Alabama had hired Coach Mike Norvell away from Florida State, Lane Kiffin would have been at the top of FSU's list of people to call. So unlike Alabama, there are other schools who realize how good of a coach he has become, how effective his offense is, and we also know how much Saban was against hiring him. He's grown up, though. This isn't the Lane Kiffin from Tennessee and USC. And bottom line is this, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to take it out on the rest of the SEC. They have a much easier schedule this year. Compared to 2023, Ole Miss football schedule is far easier. Football often doesn't turn out how you would expect it. Injuries and timing of play and mistakes and bounces that go your way or the other team's way are far more of a role than people think. But 2024 football for Ole Miss, the schedule anyways, looks a lot more forgiving at face value. They should absolutely start the year 6-0. The only team with a pulse that they play in those first 6 games is Kentucky, who they should certainly be better than. And they play LSU, who they beat last year in a close game, in a shootout. LSU lost a lot, including the Heisman Trophy winner. They should win that game. And then they play Oklahoma, Arkansas, UGA. That's a really tough one. Florida, who they should trounce, and then Mississippi State, which is a rivalry, but one that they should get this year without a doubt. There's no reason at all to think that they can't get to 10-2. That UGA game will be tough. We understand that. They should beat Oklahoma. They should beat LSU. Should beat Florida. They should beat Arkansas. They should beat Kentucky. Should win your rivalry game in the Egg Bowl. And 10-2 is the floor to me. And 10-2 in the SEC is going to get them in. Honestly, Georgia and LSU are the only 2 teams that even have a roster close to competing with Ole Miss at this point. As we mentioned, though, LSU is going to have a new quarterback and has a ton of transition going on with that coordinator position. I think with all the moving pieces, I'd put Ole Miss over LSU right now. Now, the good thing for LSU is that that game is more than halfway into the year. Both teams are going to have already played 6 games, and that helps. As far as Georgia, they're probably going to be the top team in the nation again, and it's going to be an all-out war to beat them. But Ole Miss definitely has a decent shot. I wouldn't favor them over Georgia, but I think they have a solid chance to go out there and compete and do some special things against the Bulldogs. Can they get it done? Can they get over that hump? At the end of the day, I don't know that it really matters. You'd certainly like to win that game. You'd certainly like to find your way into the number 1 spot in the SEC and then obviously have your chance to win the SEC and get one of those buys or get a top 4 seed in the playoff. Maybe you don't. We've talked about that before. Maybe you want to be that 5th, 6th seed so you get that home playoff game against an easier opponent and you don't have that big layoff. You get that home crowd. You get the Grove rocking for tailgating and everything else there in Oxford. But either way, 11-1 gets them in. 10-2 is going to get them in. 9-3 would probably get a lot of SEC teams in. That said, with how weak their schedule is, I think that's kind of danger zone for them. But I would be shocked if they go worse than 9-3. I'd take that bet right now. If you gave me 8.5 or more for their win total, I'd take that in a heartbeat. Trouble is, I think their win total is 9.5 because Vegas knows how this works. And I think I'm leaning the over there as well. I think they get to 10 wins again this year. But I'd be shocked if they went 8-4 or worse. Absolutely shocked outside of a massive injury to a very important position. But Ole Miss is the team that nobody could stop offensively last year. Bama held them down pretty well. That was the one team. But the team that people just could not stop last year, they're better this year offensively. They're better this year defensively. And I think they're playing with the chip on their shoulder. You saw teams do that. You saw a couple of teams win 10 games in 2022. Florida State did it. Some of those Pac-12 teams that we mentioned did it. And then what did they do in 2023? They took that 10 wins and they turned it into 11, 12, 13 wins. Florida State did it. Oregon, other teams did it as well. Can Ole Miss be the one to take it from 10, 11 with their bowl, to more this year? Georgia's the big question, but those are your top 2 teams in the SEC. And I'll tell you, with Ole Miss's offense, with what they bring back, nobody wants to play that team this year. Nobody wants to go up against that offense this year. It's like playing LSU last year. You know they're going to score. You know they're going to bring it offensively. And with Alabama maybe taking a step back, with LSU maybe taking a step back, Texas maybe taking a slight step back, Ole Miss is in prime position to make the SEC championship, have a chance to win it, and certainly go to the playoff. What are your thoughts? Who's the team you don't want to see this year? Again, I think if it's anybody, it's Ole Miss. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Again, join the channel by hitting subscribe. Help us get that number up to 5,000. We're inching closer to it. We've been doing this for a little over 5 weeks. Appreciate all the support. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching College Football Addiction.